What if I told you that a fifth-round rookie just made a contract move so daring that agents are calling it a threat to the system and NFL owners are freaking out? The NFL may have just been rewritten by Shedeur.
News out of the NFL where the Browns have signed Shedeur to his rookie deal. Our NFL insider Jonathan Jones reporting that it's a 4-year, $4.6 million deal. So Cleveland, if you remember, selected Shedeur in the 5th round of this year's draft with the 144th overall pick.
What if I told you that, while everyone was preoccupied with first-round quarterbacks landing their huge contracts, a 5th-round draft pick turned the NFL upside down? Owners, agents, and players throughout the league are in a panic after Sanders secretly entered Cleveland and revealed a bombshell. The topic we are discussing is prime equity. Future NFL contracts are drafted. Folks, it's about more than just football nowadays.
Going to look good.
The NFL may never be the same because of a player who treats himself like a business empire. Listen. Everyone assumed Shedeur was just another typical late-round quarterback selection when the Browns selected him 144th overall in the 5th round and signed him to his rookie contract, a 4-year deal worth $600,000. This is when it becomes completely crazy, though. This contract was no ordinary one. According to sources, it was the first NFL contract to contain what are known as prime equity terms. You've never heard anything like this before, I assure you. You see, Shedeur entered those contract talks with an entirely different perspective than most rookies, who are just thrilled to have made the squad. He was bargaining not only as a player, but also as a brand. As a future media mogul who recognizes that your worth extends much beyond your Sunday work, you are valuable in 2024.
Money in his pocket. That's why I said the prime equity is a concept that blends power, brand power, media leverage, and ownership mindset inspired by the legacy of Deion Coach Prime Sanders and carried forward by Shedeur Sanders. It's not a real contract clause yet, but it's a new age negotiating weapon for players like Shedeur who bring more to the table than just football talent. Ain't nobody came up with the word prime equity. A player's total value beyond the field, including their media brand, fan base influence, content rights, merch sales, NIL history, and ability to generate attention, revenue, and culture. It's the prime way of doing business, not just playing the game, but owning the attention, audience, and upside.
What is prime equity, then? And why is it causing a stir in front offices throughout the league? So fasten your seatbelts because this is where the fun begins. Prime equity is more than simply a fancy term that agents use. It completely rethinks how NFL contracts operate. Our sources state that a player's prime equity is their entire worth outside of the field,
like you showed,
which
but it's
includes their
also
media
going
brand,
to look good,
base influence, content rights,
now,
merchandise sales, zero history, and capacity to attract attention. Make money and create culture. The kicker is this, though. It is no longer merely an idea. In reality, it is incorporated as leverage into contracts. Consider it this way. How many times do you see Sanders' name appear when you switch on First Take, browse social media, or view sports highlights? Without even attempting, the man creates information, debates, and discussions. It's not a coincidence. That is the operation of prime equity. And this is where things start to get very crazy. According to the source material, Sanders continued Diane Prime Sanders' legacy by advancing this idea. We're discussing wealth-building tactics for generations that go much beyond conventional football contracts. Playing for pay isn't the only thing at stake here. This has to do with being compensated for being a cultural influence. However, this is what's actually keeping NFL execs up at night. Shedeur is requesting more than just this designation as a prime equity. He is requesting it. And from what we can see, he has the power to support it. Come on, he's a 5th round pick, you may be thinking. What sort of power could he possibly possess? And that's precisely the sort of antiquated thinking that's going to be challenged. Because you begin to understand that perhaps the traditional draft position no longer tells the whole story when you consider Shedeur's media presence, social media following, buzz-generating abilities, and money streams that are entirely independent of the NFL. Take a look at his media device. We are discussing direct fan marketing, Twitch streaming, Instagram live sessions, and YouTube channels. This man's brand has become the center of an entire ecosystem. And this is the issue that NFL teams are most anxious about. He can make money. All of this occurs entirely apart from any events that take place on the football field. Recall that this player was earning absolutely nothing while attending college. We're discussing streaming income, merchandising agreements, and brand partnerships. He was still enrolled in school when all of this occurred. Imagine what would happen if NFL-level visibility and marketing opportunities were combined with that kind of earning power.
Legendary brand collabs NIL wealth from college. Independent monetization power. Quinn Ewers got drafted in the 7th round by the Miami Dolphins and paid as near as much as he was getting NIL. What if these players come in the league talking about they demand that they get the minimum of their NIL money? Whatever they were making in college, they get the minimum of that coming into the NFL. That'll be a big fight, but that'll be crazy.
This leads us to what is arguably the most contentious aspect of the whole narrative. Players like Shedeur may begin to demand in the NFL that their contracts guarantee them at least the minimum of what they were earning and no deals during college. According to industry rumors, can you picture the mayhem that would result? It was perfectly stated by our source. What if these athletes enter the league discussing?
But it's also
they insist
going
on
to
receiving
look good,
the bare
okay?
minimum due to their
now,
lack of funds.
It does.
They receive the bare minimum of their college earnings when they enter the NFL. It will be wild, but it will be a major fight. Consider the ramifications of this. A comprehensive reorganization of rookie contracts may be in the works, particularly for athletes who significantly increase their earning potential while in college. And Shedeur Sanders is positioned to be the face of this transformation because of his illustrious brand partnerships and self-sufficient monetization ability. This is where things become even more intriguing though. Shedeur can create his documentary, series and live stream content and effectively eliminate traditional media middlemen, thanks to the streaming and narrative components of Prime Equity. We are discussing a player whose brand can be enhanced without the help of ESPN or Fox Sports. He can reach his audience directly and make money off of that connection. Something is intriguing about this tactic that is revealed by the source material. The company has a staff, brand strategy, and goal, and it negotiates like an owner. The cold prime link connected to dying equals audience media culture developed in brand infrastructure. It goes beyond simply being a skilled football player. This focuses on comprehending the business of sports at a level that most athletes never consider, as well as the relationship to Coach Prime.
Like he showed,
it's
but
more
it's
than
also
just a family
going
tradition.
to look good. Okay,
that is a feature of the
now,
brand infrastructure. You're getting more than just football expertise from your father, Deion Sanders. Decades of media-savvy brand development and knowledge of how to turn celebrity status into lasting wealth are being passed down to you. Shedeur is therefore representing more than just himself as a quarterback when he enters into contract negotiations. He portrays himself as a member of a media conglomerate who has his own following, sources of income, and the capacity to provide value to the company that goes far beyond victories and losses. This is the point at which the NFL establishment is truly beginning to worry, because a fundamental change in the way professional sports contracts operate may be in store if other players begin to seek comparable deal arrangements and this prime equity idea gains traction. We're speaking of athletes who can now make money from sources other than their physical prowess. Will the NFL genuinely accept these terms, though? Is the issue that everyone is asking? Furthermore, given what we're witnessing with shoulder contraction, the solution may be more intricate than you initially believe. This is the feature of prime equity that gives it such potency as a negotiation tool. The player's contributions are not the only thing to consider. It's about realizing that, in the current media environment, A player may have a significant impact on an organization even off the field. Consider
like
it from
he showed,
Cleveland's
but it's
point
also
of view.
going to look
When they
good.
signed
Okay?
Shedeur Sanders,
now,
they are getting more
it
than
does-
simply a quarterback. They will get access to his whole fan base, media environment, and his capacity to create excitement and draw attention to the franchise. That's important information, particularly for a squad that has been having trouble drawing national notice, and the fictitious contract clause that has been circulating. It's really crazy. We are discussing merchandising income shares, content, ownership rights, and viewership bonuses. This is like treating a football player like a high-level CEO in the entertainment sector. A $2 million bonus is included in the MAC contract if Shedeur's official Twitch, Instagram, or YouTube video garners 10 million views overall throughout the regular season. Let me say that again. We are discussing NFL contracts that offer bonuses. For social media effectiveness, this territory is unheard of. However, this is where the content ownership clause truly shines. Shedeur would be the exclusive owner of all behind-the-scenes footage shot throughout the NFL season that is not connected to a team. This includes live streaming, documentary programs, and vault-style material. He retains all of that. His own brand content and the merchandising income portion
but it's
are
also
not under the
going
NFL's
to look
control
good. Okay?
or monetization.
Now,
20% of every sale of team items that bear his name, likeness, or authorized brand slogans. That goes beyond simply being compensated to play. That entails receiving payment each time a fan purchases a jersey, t-shirt, or other item of product bearing his name. The brand equity match condition, which would enable the player to co-invest in upcoming team-affiliated media ventures, was one of the more radical clauses that our source was apprehensive about teams really agreeing to. However, the fact that these discussions are taking place at all demonstrates how drastically the terrain is shifting. In actuality, athletes like Shedeur Sanders no longer require the NFL to provide them with that income. They have separate sources of income. They can make money entirely outside of conventional football structures and have direct access to their viewers. The entire power dynamic and contract discussions are altered as a result, and this is where the idea of prime equity really shines. Getting paid more isn't the only goal. It has to do with receiving varied compensation. It's important to understand that a player's overall worth in 2024 will comprise their media presence, cultural influence, conversation-starting skills, and revenue-generating material. Coach Prime said, "We don't sign contracts in response to inquiries over the agreement. We leave behind a legacy." That was more than simply a catchy soundbite. That was a very different way of thinking about the way professional players ought to conduct themselves. Since this is what's actually taking place behind the scenes, the necessity for guys like Shedeur Sanders is becoming increasingly apparent to the NFL. The NFL is more important than those athletes. The old power structure starts to change when you can independently produce millions of views, millions of dollars in revenue, and enormous cultural influence. And with this prime equity revolution, that is precisely what is taking place. Players are more than simply workers anymore. They are developing into media moguls, content producers, and business partners who also play football from a team standpoint. However, this is when things start to become very interesting. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just signed by Cleveland because they needed a quarterback. They signed him because they understood that his high equity worth may revolutionize the media visibility and cultural significance of their entire company. Consider it. When was the last time the Browns' quarterback issue was the subject of such intense discussion and interest? When was the last time there was this much talk and excitement surrounding a fifth-round selection? That is the essence of prime equity. And contemporary NFL teams are
like he
beginning
showed,
to realize
but it's also going to
require
look good.
just that
okay?
kind of value.
Now,
This entire plot is further complicated by the conjecture on Shedeur's potential role as the starter. According to our source, General Manager Andrew Barry and the coaching staff are adopting a competitive stance which might allow Dylan Gabriel and other players a chance before Sugar takes over. Here's the problem though. His prime equity value continues to generate returns for the company, even if he does not start immediately. There's value beyond standard quarterback statistics every time his name is brought up in the media, whenever the Browns' quarterback position is discussed, and every time a fan purchases goods or interacts with team material, in part because of his presence. And for that reason, the idea of prime equity is so groundbreaking. Players should be rewarded for more than simply touchdowns and victories. It's about realizing that, in the media ecosystem of today, the appropriate player may create significant value for a company in ways that are unrelated to Sunday afternoon activities. What does this signify for NFL contracts going forward? What does this imply for other players who might wish to engage in such negotiations? Above all, what does this signify for the league as a whole? We may be witnessing a radical change in the way professional sports contracts operate if this prime equity revolution gains traction. We are discussing players who are more than just athletic these days. They combine the roles of business partners, brand ambassadors, content producers, and entertainers. This is what will truly blow your mind though. This is only the start. Every other player with substantial media exposure and brand power will begin to demand similar treatment if Shedeur Sanders is able to successfully negotiate prime equity clauses into his NFL contract and demonstrate that this model creates value for the team as well as the player. At that point, things start to get extremely intriguing since the NFL isn't just vying for talent with other sports leagues. In addition to traditional football contracts, they are up against independent content development options, streaming services, and social media platforms, all of which may offer higher revenue. Whether prime equity will alter the NFL is not the question. How soon and how drastically that transition will occur is the question. And that transformation may be occurring much more quickly than anyone anticipated, based on what we're witnessing. With Shedeur Sanders' historic deal, this is how athlete empowerment will develop in the future. When gamers begin to think like business owners and shareholders instead of employees, this is what occurs. Sanders could be the player who makes all the difference with his prime equity revolution. How do you feel about the idea of prime equity? Is this only a cunning negotiation ploy that won't work? Or are we looking at the future of NFL contracts? More
like
significantly,
but it's also
do you believe that other athletes need to begin asking their
now,
teams to treat them similarly? Tell me in the comments section below. What are your thoughts on this revolution that is upending the league as a whole? Additionally, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell if you want to be informed about all the most recent NFL contract news, player empowerment dailies, and behind-the-scenes insights that aren't covered by the mainstream media. Because, believe me, professional sports are about to undergo some significant changes, and the Shedeur Sanders tale is only the beginning. Get more breaking NFL insider information by subscribing now.